I ask the student as they stand behind the ball and they get prepared to take their shot that they spell the word trust. And on the very first letter, T, they start their motion forward to address the ball. They spell the word trust. And on the very last T, they swing the club. So it's T-R-U-S-T, and then they pull the trigger and swing the club. And what that does, and what it did for me as a student and a player, as well as now as a teacher, is it allows myself and my students to kind of take that breath, focus on what we're trying to do, and trust that we're going to do it.
Hi, this is Herb Strackman from Tampa, Florida, and I play at Chichi Rodriguez Country Club. This is Golf Smarter number 894.
A Manuel de la Torre student proudly continues his teaching legacy with Trish Butcher.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Trish.
Hi. Thank you, Fred.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You come highly recommended.
Thank you.
A longtime Golf Smarter listener and ambassador, Rick Petrick, suggested that I give you a call.
That's wonderful.
He's taking lessons with you?
He is not. He's actually just part of my YouTube channel. He's one of my followers.
Oh, so he follows you on?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
It's good. It's good. I started my YouTube channel about, 4 years ago. And it was literally intended for my students as reminders of what I did every day with them in their lessons. And then it just kind of grew from there. So he is one of my followers. So I appreciate that.
Well, please publicize it. It's 8:15 tea time, right?
Yes, it is. 8:15 tea time. It is
815
TEE. And it actually started off as a date. So I went to my attorney's office when I wanted to incorporate my golf business. And he said, well, what do you want to call it? And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing. So golf business. And he handed me a piece of paper and he said, well, try coming up with some names and, think of something creative. And I dated the piece of paper and it was August 15th of 1999. And I was like, ooh, 8:15, that's a good time to play. Ha, ha, ha. And that's how it started. So.
Oh, and that's so funny because I actually thought you meant the clock.
Yep.
8:15.
Yep. It is converted to the clock, but it is actually the date. Yeah.
Okay. As an 8:04 birthday.
Oh, yeah?
I relate.
All right.
I love it. Yeah, I'm an August birthday. So you grew up in Chicago, moved to Milwaukee.
I
now
never
you're
lived
in Florida.
Milwaukee. Never lived in Milwaukee.
You never lived in Milwaukee?
Nope. I commuted from Chicago to Milwaukee to see Manuel.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. Manuel de la Torre.
Yes.
Who you got to work with and take lessons from, or tell me your history with him, because he's we've had many people who've worked with him on the show, and including Manuel before he passed away was also featured on this podcast.
I've listened to that podcast many times, actually.
Oh, thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you. We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. So I was a very young professional. I had just started in the business. I was all of 20 years old. And so it was a long time ago. So people are going to start doing the math. Yes, I'm old. But so
no, you're not.
So I was an assistant professional at a golf course outside of Chicago. And I'm hitting balls on the range one day. And this woman came up to me and she said, hi, I'm Pat Kimball. I'm the new teaching pro. And I went, hi, I'm Trish. I'm one of the teaching pros too. And she looked at me and she said, you're going to teach golf with that golf swing? Wow. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so she introduced me to a concept. And from that moment forward, I knew that she had something there. And about a month later, she invited me to go to Milwaukee with her to meet Manuel. And I never looked back. I met him. I spoke to him. I didn't have a lesson that day, but I met him. I spoke with him. I observed him. And from that moment forward, I never, ever looked back. And my career with him began. So it was pretty cool.
And what was it that was what was it that just clicked for you?
Well, so my whole history, and at that point, I knew I wanted to teach. So you could say my vocation in my life was to teach, whether it would be teaching somebody how to tie their shoes. I didn't care. I knew that I wanted to teach. And I have had to teach juniors how to tie their shoes. But
that's because of Velcro and now slip-ons.
Absolutely.
You don't need to tie your shoes anymore.
But I observed him teaching, and I observed Pat teaching, and Pat was Manuel's student for almost 50 years. And I observed both of them teaching, and I got a sense of calm. It's for lack of a better way to put it. And it was just so cathartic, the way they both communicated, the way Manuel communicated, and how precise he was in the words he used and the images he projected to his students, that I knew I wanted to emulate that. And then I started to learn about the concept that he taught and how basic and fundamental the physics and the geometry were, that it just fascinated me, and I never looked back. So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you say how precise he was with his words, flesh that out a little bit. What was it?
Manuel used to tell a story about the fact that he was not born in this country and that Spanish was his first language. And he told a story about being in school at a very young age. And I can't remember the word that he said, but there was a double entendre on the word. And it was something like, how are you feeling today, Manuel? And he said, I feel very gay, or whatever it was. And the word had a double entendre, right. And he learned very quickly that the words he used had to matter, because in English, there could be dual meanings of a single word. So he was super, super specific about what he said and how he said it. So he never made those mistakes again. So
now let's take it back even farther, because growing up in Spain, his father was also a very famous instructor, Angel de la Torre.
Yep.
Angel.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Angel.
Hispanic pronunciation, but or Angel de la Torre, who was a great instructor in his own right.
Yes. Yes, he was.
And did Manuel follow his father's methods or just his footsteps?
So a little bit of both. So Manuel told the story that from the time of his, toddler years, his father put a golf club in his hands, and his father and Ernest Jones were very close and had a very good relationship. And everything that Ernest Jones and Angel de la Torre taught, they taught to Manuel, who was this receptive little sponge at, 2-3 years old. And literally for his entire life, he lived to his mid-90s. He never turned away from any of that, and he absorbed all of that information, expanded upon it, and that was his life and his mindset. It was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
So he's been gone now since, I think he passed away in 2016.
Correct. Yeah.
And he was featured on Golf Smarter back in 2009. I had him on the show.
Yeah.
Episode 187, which was rerun as Golf Smarter Mulligan's 90. So people should go back and listen to that. Why is it even today that his lessons, his methods are so embraced by golf instructors?
Well, I wish it were embraced by more golf instructors, but I think truthfully, because there is nothing in the concept and we refer to it as the concept, but there's nothing in the concept that can be disproven through physics and geometry. So everything that I strive to teach my students that I was taught by Manuel or by Pat is proven through the physics and geometry. And science and physics don't lie. And math doesn't lie. So there's no simpler way to learn how to use a tool than use the tool the way it was designed, if that makes sense.
And what is the tool?
The golf club. It's that simple. It's the golf club. We use tools every single day. Forks, knives, pens, computers, phones, glasses. Nobody teaches us how to use them. They teach us what to do with them, not how to do it.
Wow. All right, we're going to go deeper with that, but we're going to take a time out right now. We'll be right back. All right, let's go into the concept.
Okay.
Let's talk about the concept. Let's explain it from the ground level up.
Okay. So in the game that we call golf, we are given a full set of golf clubs, which include 14 tools in our bag. And each of those 14 tools have a specific purpose, and that's to propel a golf ball forward in a direction, presumably our target. And if we use that tool, each of those 14 tools are designed to do different things, more loft, less loft, longer, shorter, things like that. But if we use that tool in the same way for a basic shot, we swing it in the direction of our target and a golf ball is propelled forward. And the biggest word I just used beside tool is swing. And the definition of the word swing, if you were to look in a dictionary, or for your listeners that are a little younger, if you were to Google it, you would see that the word is defined as a backward-forward motion from a fixed point or a to and fro motion from a fulcrum. We become that fulcrum in the golf swing. Our bodies are the fulcrum that the golf club swings around. It's that simple. Literally that simple.
So the takeaway that I always get when we have these conversations about him is the center point, the spine, right? And that you're working from there.
Correct.
Okay.
Specifically, I would say your sternum. So
okay.
If we as human beings have a spine that keeps us upright. Our skeletal system spine keeps us upright as human beings. And our sternum is what is the focal point or the center of that swinging motion, because we swing the club with our hands and our arms around that sternum.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
You want to keep going?
Sure. So
yeah, please.
So we hold the golf club with our hands and we swing the club back to our trail shoulder with our hands. And we swing the club forward in the direction of the target with our arms. And our arms are defined as the part of our appendage from our elbow to our shoulder. And so I ask my students all the time, I say, our fingers, our hand, our wrist, our forearm, our elbow, upper arm, which is our tricep, bicep, and then our shoulder. So I give each of my students a tennis ball and a string, which if you've ever heard or seen anything about Manuel and the club-focused instruction and the concept that I teach, we use a ball and a string all the time. Ernest Jones used to tie a pocket knife to his handkerchief. So Manuel gave me my first tennis ball and a string. And we swing that ball and string with our arm. Our forearms create a lever motion, but our arms, our upper arms, triceps, biceps, can create a swinging motion. So we swing the golf club backward and forward with our hands and arms, and the fulcrum between our tricep, bicep, each shoulder to our elbow, is our sternum. So specifically, in my humble opinion, the center of your golf swing is your sternum. Make sense?
Now, it does to me, but there are so many different methods, concepts. There are so many different ways that golf is being taught from so many different instructors that we have things like Manuel de la Torre's swing. We have stack and tilt. We have single pivot. We have stillness, weight up on the front, weight up in the back. We have so many different ways of going. Now I know you were saying math doesn't lie, but do these get incorporated into that, or are they separate? How do you feel about these?
So in my humble opinion, and again, I'm just a local golf pro, I'm a nobody, so to speak. I'm a somebody to my...
No, you're not. You're featured on Golf Smarter. You're an important person right now.
But so I would say that most golf instruction, most people that teach golf, teach pieces and fixes and what's the word I would like to use? They teach pieces of a puzzle. We that teach club-focused instruction in this concept with Manuel, or from Manuel, teach a philosophy. And it's a completely different way to look at it. We teach an entire system or concept that incorporates every single person. So if I were to take a teacher that, say, teaches stack and tilt, and I specifically teach Special Olympics, I teach wounded warriors, I teach veterans, and I teach people with physical limitations.
Thank you.
So, thank you. I love doing it.
Thank you for doing it.
I love doing it.
That's awesome.
It's probably the most rewarding part of my job. But
we'll talk about that then more later.
When I encounter somebody that is missing a leg or a person that is paralyzed from the waist down, how could I possibly teach that person stack and tilt? I can't. But I can teach that person to swing an object, which in this case would be a golf club, around their center, which in my humble opinion is their sternum. However, that person's ability to do that, the concept remains the same. A swing is a backward-forward motion from a fixed point. It is a to and fro motion from a fulcrum. So however that can be accomplished with that particular person and their body is how you get it accomplished. But I can't teach them to put their weight on their front foot. I can't teach them to forward press. I can't teach them to keep their left arm straight, because what if they don't have a left arm? If they're a right-handed player? What if I myself personally happen to be blind in one eye and legally blind in the other? How can I teach somebody to focus on the dimple of the golf ball? Well, I can't, because I don't see the dimple of the golf ball. So how could I possibly teach somebody to do that? I myself personally don't use an intermediary target like a lot of teachers teach, because I can't see it. So how could I possibly teach you to do it if you can't see it? Can't. So the concept of swinging a tool in this case, a golf club, backward and forward from a fixed point, can be accomplished any way your body can physically do it. And you can still accomplish a great golf swing and be very successful at the game.
Wow. Yes, you can. And you are. And we'll be back right after this. Your visual impairment.
Yes.
Does it, how severe is it to impact your game and your instruction?
It's not. It really, I actually have no way to answer that because I've never known any other way to be, because I was born.
Is this something that came on while you were born this way?
I was born this way. So I have no concept of what it is to see out of my right eye. And
of course.
So I don't know what it's like. I mean, I have contacts where I can drive a car. You might not want to be on the road when I'm around.
Oh, okay.
So I can function on a day-to-day basis. I can do things, but I don't see what other people see. So I have no way of knowing what they interpret.
Yeah, you never have.
Never have.
Yeah.
And likewise, I can't tell you, if I were to work with you on your golf swing, I can't possibly tell you how to feel something because I'm not you. Mm-hmm. So how could I possibly interpret what you feel? And I think that's the thing that frustrates me as a teacher, is when I observe other teachers trying to teach this game, and they're doing the best they can. I'm not dissing any other teachers. I'm really not. But when a teacher says, well, you got to feel like you're doing X. Well, how could you possibly tell me how to feel something? I can't. So I think that's my biggest frustration watching other teachers, is they have to use words that mean something. Going back to Manuel's words mattered. I can't tell you how to feel because I'm not you. I can tell you what to picture. I can't picture it for you. I can give you an idea of what to picture, and that will make your brain send synapses to your body, which will interpret your movement.
A number of years ago, when I was first starting to play golf,
uh-huh.
and I picked the game up when I was in my early 40s, and I went to a golf school. Yeah, sure. You're talking about you're getting old, babe? Okay, so there was a female instructor that I was working with, and she kept saying to me, "Do you feel that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Exactly.
I had no idea what she was saying, and she's saying, "No, feel how this is." And she kept repeating it, and I kept saying, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. I'm new to this game, and I really don't understand what you're trying to explain to me." She goes, "No, but listen, just do." And she would just, all she did was repeat the same words over and over, and it was not connecting. I was getting very frustrated.
And unfortunately, that's more common than I care to admit.
Oh, yeah.
It's so sad. That's why one of my mottos in golf is, they break them, I fix them.
Well, thank you for taking on that role. How did you, I actually, one time I was reached out to by a listener uh-huh. who was visually impaired, uh-huh. That he developed as an adult. Uh-huh. But he's playing golf regularly and says, "You want to go out and play golf with a blind guy?" And I'm like,
love it.
Are you kidding? Of course I do.
I love it.
I love it. And he had a handler. I mean, as you do, and he plays competitively now. Uh-huh. And he's, his handler's lining him up,
yep.
and telling him which direction to go and what club to hit. They discuss the hole and everything. But it was, I hate to use this pun, but it was so eye-opening for me to be able to just trust the feel. Trust the feel.
Trust the observation.
And not,
So I wouldn't say trust the feel because our feels change. I would say trust your observation.
Right.
Or trust your awareness. So, and that was...
I would go with awareness because he definitely had that.
Yeah.
He definitely had
and
that.
And that's another one where I talk to my students all the time. I try very hard not to ask them how something felt. I try to ask them what they were aware of. Because a feel can only happen after something takes place. So if I'm going to touch something, I only feel it after I've made the action of touching it. So I can't create a feel, but I can be aware of the feel after it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Fabulous. How did you get involved with Special Olympics, PGA Hope, Wounded Warriors, these groups? And give me a story.
So,
but first, tell me about how you got involved. I'm asking too many things at once.
So that's okay. So in 1999, when I came up with the name 815 Tea Time, I opened the first ever indoor golf learning center in the state of Florida. And I was basically golf tech before golf tech existed. I had a simulator, and it was pretty new back then. And so my parents got ill. I ended up helping take care of my parents, and I closed my golf shop. So I went out back to the green grass facility to teach because I no longer had my indoor facility. Whatever. Long story short, fast forward, I was at a facility that ended up selling and closed their doors. So I was looking for a job teaching, and I was hired by the former LPGA Tour professional Donna White, if you've ever heard that name. Kind of a pretty popular name in women's golf. And Donna hired me to teach at her facility, which was local here in South Florida. It was Okeechobee Golf Course in Lake Worth. And she kind of plunged me into, oh, by the way, we have this group coming. It's called PGA Hope, and you're going to teach it. Oh, okay, whatever. And the PGA Hope program is helping our patriots everywhere. And it's a program offered by the PGA of America, and it is specifically for veterans. It's a 8-week program, and it's no charge to the veterans whatsoever. And you're certified in adaptive golf. So in case veterans are wounded or have limitations, we are trained how to teach them. So the PGA Hope and Wounded Warriors started because of Donna, and her just throwing me into this program, which was awesome. And then about 2 months later, she said, oh, by the way, Trish, you're taking over the Special Olympics program here at Okeechobee, Palm Beach County, Florida. Our golf course is their home for the Special Olympics in Palm Beach County. And by the way, you're doing the program. It's like, oh, okay. And there I went, and I walked out, and there were about 35 Special Olympic athletes, everything from physical to autistic to physical limitations to everything under the sun, to blind, to deaf, to everything else. And I just kind of got thrown into it and figured it out the first couple times, and then started researching about adaptive golf. I got hooked up with a woman named Judy Alvarez, who for the PGA of America is the woman who created and was one of the founding people that created PGA Hope and Wounded Warriors and adaptive golf. And Judy and I have been friends ever since, and I'm certified with her instruction and mentorship on how to work with people with adaptive needs. So that's kind of how it started. And I'm telling you, to this day, 8 or 9 years later, I can't even remember when I started it with them, it is probably the most rewarding part of my job. Truly.
I can imagine. Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Is adaptive golf growing?
Absolutely.
Are they really pursuing it?
Absolutely.
And is it growing on just organically?
Yeah, it is. There's adaptive golf tournaments there throughout the country. I was actually just reading a whole article about somebody made a comment on Facebook about Tiger playing in the Masters and about how this person that wrote the article or the question, how he had his leg amputated, and he thinks that if Tiger had gone through amputation, he wouldn't be suffering as badly as he is now. And so it was really cool. But adaptive golf is really growing because golf is a sport. Like I said before, if you use the tool, if you have the concept in your mind that it is a swinging motion around a center, and you use the tool the way it was intended, anybody can play it. Missing limbs, paralyzed, blind, deaf, doesn't matter. Anybody can play it, which is cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I love that about golf. Is Judy Alvarez still around and doing this?
Yes, she is. She's an LPGA
I think
and
we got to get her on the show.
Oh, she would love it. She would love it.
Oh, yeah. All right. We're going to talk after the show to get me introduced so we can get her on the show. But we're going to take another time out right now and find out what's happening Golf Smarter Mulligans. And maybe even while we're talking about Golf Smarter Mulligans, let's bring in a clip and we'll come back with a clip from Manuel de la Torre's show. As I announced last week, we're following up on our 9 lessons from the late Tony Manzoni with 6 episodes from the Golf Smarter archives that featured Dr. Glenn Albaugh, who passed away earlier this year at the age of 91. Glenn was a mental game pioneer, along with being a professor and the golf coach at the University of Pacific for nearly 3 decades. Now, in our second episode that was originally published on November 29, 2011, we continue to discuss Glenn's first book, Winning the Battle Within.
When we develop a strategy, you're going to pick a strategy that fits your game, fits the situation, and one you can totally commit to. So, if you haven't hit a cut shot in about a month, please don't try it out here. Or go back to that lob shot. And so if you don't have a lob shot and you have a tight lie, just get it on a green. You might have a 30-footer, but it's a lot better than trying to do something you don't know how to do. And say you're in the trees, and instead of attempting a miracle shot, just punch it out on the fairway. In other words, do something you can do. And one of my players I worked with for a long time, Kirk Triplett, says, conservative strategy and aggressive swing. Only do what you're prepared to do, and prepare yourself to do as many things as you can.
That's our sister podcast, Golf Smarter Mulligans, episode 210, the second of 6 in our series featuring another incredible mental game coach whom we recently lost, but allow his legacy to live on. This episode is called The Perfect Swing is the One You Trust. Check the show notes or our blog post to learn more about Glenn, how to get either of his books, Winning the Battle Within and The Clutch Golfer Formula, and information about donations in his memory. Please subscribe to both of our golf podcasts, Golf Smarter, published every Tuesday, and the podcast that revisits the best of the Golf Smarter podcast that's just no longer available on any podcast app, called Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released every Friday from wherever you're listening right now.
The club is designed to give you a certain height for certain distances, and the other thing that people don't understand are the laws of trajectory. The laws of trajectory are very simple. The further you propel an object, the higher it goes. The shorter you propel it, the lower it goes. So when you're hitting a shot, for instance, if you're, say, 5 yards off to the left of a bunker that's on the left-hand side of the green, and you have to hit it to the green, that ball's not going to go very high. But everybody has this tremendous picture of the ball going high, and they hit it right in the middle and knock it right in the bunker. So the mental picture is always the ball going forward so that the club gets a chance to meet the ball in the face of the club, and then the face of the club, which has the loft, gets the ball in the air.
Well, from an interview in 2009, episode 187, That was Manuel de la Torre. And it was also, you can go back and find it on episode 90 of Golf Smarter Mulligans. You got any stories from adaptive golf from the programs you work with that just you love to repeat? I'd love to hear it.
I have one, and it's not even so much about a physical limitation, but the first PGA Hope program that I did, that Donna White threw me into with no preparation, there were about 15 veterans in this program, one of whom was, at the time, a 92-year-old World War II vet. And unfortunately, this week, he has just gone into hospice, which breaks my heart. But anyway, I digress. There was a woman at this program, and she suffered pretty strongly from PTSD. And so it was an 8-week program, and the first week she kind of sat on a bench and took stock of what was going on and didn't participate. And the second week, she was sitting on the bench again, and I walked over to her and I asked her if I could sit, and she said, yeah. And so I said, there's no pressure. There's no need to feel like you need to participate. But if you ever want to, just jump in whenever you're ready. And I went on and I left and I went on and I continued teaching it with the other teachers. There were more teachers there than just me. And at the end of and she ended up starting to participate. And at the end of the 8-week program, we all sat in our little food court area at the golf course, and we were having pizza, and I asked everybody to just give me a summary of what they thought of the program and if there was anything we could do as teachers and as a facility to make it better. And this woman stood up, and we went around the room and everybody talked, and Bob talked about being in World War II, and then this woman, Christina, came up and she said, she looked at all the other veterans and she said, I know you're going to understand what this means, but 8 weeks ago, I was dragged here against my will because I wouldn't have been available after that day. So she said, because I would have made myself unavailable permanently. And so we all kind of took stock of that. And then she looked over at me and she pointed to me, and I'm usually wearing loudmouth shorts or, tie-dye and bright colors and neon. And she pointed to me and she said, and you with your goofy clothes and your goofy personality, that you got more sunshine coming out of your eyeballs than anybody I know. She walked over, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, because of what you did and how you did it, you saved my life. And I started to cry. And I was like, you know what? Mm-hmm. This is why I do it every day. I don't care if you ever hit a golf ball, or if the golf club hits the golf ball, you don't hit one. I don't care if you're ever good.
Not yourself.
Right? I don't care if you're ever good at this game. I care about whether or not you take pleasure in the time that we spend together on the lesson tee and in the time you spend on the golf course. That's all I care about. That's it. That's literally it. It's pretty awesome.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And, thank you.
That's why you do what you do.
And, 8 years later, 7 years later, whatever it is, she is now a national ambassador for the PGA Hope program. And she travels the country talking about how this program saved her life and gave her hope. So that's it. That's why I do what I do. That's why I do what I do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. She's pretty awesome.
All right, let's talk about golf for a second.
All right, let's talk about golf.
Yeah, right. I'll gather myself here. So I was playing golf this week with a foursome that, one of the guys I've met before, but I hadn't played with him for years. And the other guys I didn't know. And they knew that I do this podcast. So, they're asking me about the podcast and always the question is, who's the most famous person you've, and it's like, I don't do famous people. Yeah. This is not what this podcast is about.
Yeah,
okay. Dave Pels, does that count? Yeah. Well, I actually like to say that this podcast features the unsung heroes of game improvement. And so you are definitely one of those heroes. Clearly a hero.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so I was, watching, and I don't, even though I feel like I have this master's degree in game improvement just because of speaking to hundreds of golf instructors, I don't like to give out tips and lessons. I like to ask somebody if they want an observation. And one of these guys, my observation was, your alignment, you hit the ball exactly where you were pointing. So I don't know why you're surprised it went so far right. Your body was where he goes, well, I said, show me how you line this up. And he steps up to the ball and he looks over, he's right-handed. So he turns his head and looks over his left shoulder and he's like looking down the line. And I'm like, really? Did you ever play any other sports as a kid? He goes, yeah, I played basketball in high school. I said, show me how you took a free throw. And he, stands right there in front of me and he shows the motion. I said, oh, you don't look over your left shoulder and push the ball after the side? He goes, no, that's ridiculous. I said, then why do you do that? I said, show me, your pre-shot routine. Maybe you should stand behind the ball and look and pick a spot. I said, make 3 points, the ball, the target, and something about 12 to 15 inches in front of the ball. Make that your line. And then step up to the ball and focus lining up with that little spot in front. So with that said, he's like, whoa, I've never heard of that. It's like, yeah, well, I'm glad I was able to share it with you. Check Arnold Palmer. Tell me about your pre-shot routine and how important you feel it is.
So my pre-shot routine for myself personally is basically the same pre-shot routine I have used my entire career that was taught to me by Manuel and by his student, Pat Kimball. And we used to go through a process and we would say to ourselves, if we were practicing, it was out loud. If it was in a tournament or something, it was to ourselves. And we would say, I will swing the whole club from the top to the finish in the direction of the target in one uninterrupted motion. I have translated that over the years to bring it to my students as what I call the trust drill. And I ask my students in a lesson, what do you swing? And their answer is the club. And then I say, we swing it around our, and they say center. And we swing it in the direction of the, and they say target. And we swing the club to the finish. And then I ask them what they swing the club with. And they say their hands and arms. So after I ask those series of questions in a lesson, I ask the student as they stand behind the ball and they get prepared to take their shot that they spell the word trust. And on the very first letter, T, they start their motion forward to address the ball and they spell the word trust. And on the very last T, they swing the club. So it's T, R, U, S, T, and then they pull the trigger and swing the club. And what that does, and what it did for me as a student and a player, as well as now as a teacher, is it allows myself and my students to kind of take that breath, focus on what we're trying to do, and trust that we're going to do it. If that kind of makes sense.
Is it a distraction? Are you trying to get them to not think about the body parts, about what they should be doing or what they want to do during the swing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a distraction, but it's also a calming, just kind of take a breath and trust the fact that you have learned what you're trying to do. So I've always said that there's 4 basic fundamentals in the game of golf. And it's not grip, stance, posture, alignment like everybody thinks it is.
Whoa.
I say those 4 fundamentals are: we will hit the ball in the center of the club face, or the ball will be struck in the center of the club face. We will swing the club in the direction of the target. We will choose the correct club for the shot at hand, and we will trust those decisions. So if I can instill those 4 things: centeredness of contact, swing in the direction of the target, choose the correct tool for the project at hand, and trust, my job is done.
I don't want to be a S-disturber here, but shouldn't choose the club be first? Can we choose the club?
It's one of the 4. It's one of those 4 fundamentals.
Oh, okay. It's not a sequential 4.
Those are the 4 fundamentals.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's choose right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But those are the 4 things that we're trying to accomplish, and those things will produce the trust. So now we stand behind the ball, we spell the word trust as we address it, and pull the trigger. So we've already done all of our work before we even plunk.
Right. Right. And trust is a huge word here because there is so much self-doubt. There's so much self-sabotage. There's so much doubt, lack of trust in almost every swing that an amateur golfer makes, and maybe even on the upper level. Yeah, I mean, you sit there questioning everything you're doing while you're standing there. So trust is an important word to remember, but maybe the hardest thing to execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember Manuel telling us in every lesson, or just about every lesson, and I bring it to my students now, is that once you quote unquote pull the trigger to start the motion of the golf swing, you have to leave it alone. You have to allow it and trust the fact that the club is designed to do its job.
Yeah.
Golf club manufacturers spend a heck of a lot of money designing and researching equipment to do a job, and we don't trust the fact that those clubs are designed to do a job, so we got to help it.
Right.
Leave it alone. Trust it.
Right. Right.
That's it.
That's awesome.
That's simple.
That's simple. All right, so tell us once
again,
I'm
not smart enough to make it.
But Manuel was. Absolutely. So tell me one more time, tell everyone how to get in touch with you, where to find your website, and where they can follow you and your teachings online.
All right. So it's pretty simple. It's a really good tea time to have every morning. It's 815teatime.com, 815teetime.com, 815 tea time. And it's pretty simple from there. If you type in 815 tea time, you can type in my name. You can do whatever. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, all those fun social media stuff, and all of my information is listed. It's pretty simple.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank Rick Petrick for turning me on to you, because we've learned a lot.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot, and I'm going to do everything I can to take that trust with me to the next tee box.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So I really want to give you a quick update on the hidden gem of a course I played last week. Northwood Golf Course is tucked away in a grove of massive redwoods in Sonoma County. Designed in 1928 by Alistair Mackenzie with a very rich and riddled history, but it's only a 9-hole course. And we played through twice, which was kind of a dream come true, because whenever I play a new course, I frequently think about how I can't wait to play it again with a little more course knowledge under my belt. Well, it's now May, Yet we still had 3 separate downpours during the round. It was so strange for Northern California to get rain that late in the year, but clearly this has been one of the strangest and wettest winters that I can remember. But the rain served its purpose as I'm training for 90 holes in 3 days this coming June at Bandon Dunes. As a matter of fact, I've just scheduled an episode with Bandon Dunes to get a history and overview of each of the courses on that incredible destination property, so stay tuned for that. Now, over the weekend, again, in preparation for, I'm in training, I played at Bodega Bay Golf Links, which again, it was perfect training because we were on the coast of the Pacific Ocean with strong winds throughout the round. No rain, thank goodness, but it also included an 8+ mile walk and nearly 340 feet of elevation change. The marshals thought I was crazy for not only walking the entire round, but for pushing a golf cart up these hills too. I'll leave some photos from each course on today's blog post to share some of the incredible beauty I saw in both places. I want to give a shout out to Herb Strackman of Tampa, Florida, or as he says, Tampa, Florida. But you can't fool me, Herb. Your New England accent tells me that you currently live in Tampa, but that's not where you're from, air quotes. And as our newest Golf Smarter ambassador, Herb chose to receive Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Fundamental. And you too are eligible to win one of 3 great prizes just for leaving a voicemail. You can choose Tony's video, a glove and glove storage compartment from redroostergolf.com, a unique glove subscription service that offers many styles of gloves in 26 sizes for both men and women. Or you can get a box of X1 balls with the Golf Smarter logo from Odin Golf, the golf brand that sponsors and pays everyday golfers. These tour quality balls are a fraction of the price that you'll usually pay, and when you use the code GolfSmarter at checkout, you'll receive an additional 20% off the order. Their link is in today's show notes. Just send an email and I'll get back to you with some instructions of what to do and what to say, and you are officially a Golf Smarter ambassador. Write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or pay a visit to golfsmarter.com, and while you're there, click on the Hey Fred button and leave me some questions, comments, or maybe even suggestions for upcoming episodes.